Welcome to this episode of Inside the Gym podcast. I'm Chris Gilbert, your host for this episode, and today I am super excited to introduce our guest, the Queen of Men's Health, Ali Gilbert. Ali, thanks for coming on the podcast. We appreciate you coming on. And if you don't know, if you're not familiar with Ali, she has pretty much established herself as the leading, especially a leading female expert, but one of the leading experts completely in men's health. Ali, to start, how did you, I know that you get this question all the time, but how did you get here? And if you wouldn't mind adding on to that, why should men listen to you as a female about their health?
Why should they listen to me? I'll address that. But how I got here, I have a standard story that basically in college, I majored in exercise science. Anybody who majors in that usually wants to train athletes. So when you get out of school, you're like, where are all the jobs? And why don't you see a lot? And many of us end up training people at a commercial gym, which I did. And that was in my hometown of Greenwich, Connecticut, which many people have heard of, but just in case they haven't, it's a very, very wealthy town. I always preface that with, I grew up normal. So I didn't have maids and elevators in my house and all that stuff. But basically, I was training a lot of people who played golf. And I was like, cool, I don't know anything about golf. I played soccer in college, but golf's a sport. And these guys really took it seriously. They could afford to train. They were intense. They're type A personality, like everything that I vibed with. So I was like, I'm going to learn about golf because this is like a specialty that people seem to show up for. So learned everything I could, became the go-to golf fitness person in Greenwich, Connecticut, and across the world, I guess. But basically that brought me all a male clientele. And through that experience, I realized that a lot of questions popped up, such as nutrition and energy and hormones and all these things that guys usually don't talk about, especially not in golf fitness. So I was like, cool. No one's talking about this with any guys. I'm going to do it because no women are talking about it. And testosterone and TRT and anything men's health related was still like this really weird taboo topic. So I was like, well, I don't give a fuck. I'm just going to talk about it. So here we are.
Nice. And then in watching some of your stuff, some of your podcasts and some of your Instagram reels, I know you talked a couple different times about TRT acceptance and how it's becoming better and how the acceptance of it is increasing. I wanted to ask you about that a little bit because that really hasn't been my experience. As we talked, I've been on TRT for 3 years or 3+ years, about 3.5, and it was a bear to actually get TRT. My doctor first, my general practitioner first sent me to an endocrinologist who took one look at me as a guy who's middle-aged and goes to the gym and said, well, first you've got to get off of everything that you're taking. I'm like, I'm not taking anything. And she's like, I don't believe you. And God, you have to stop taking everything before I can even begin to treat you. And I was like, okay, you're not the right person. And then I finally got to a urologist. He's like, well, your testosterone's not low. It's low, but it's not low enough. A couple of friends of mine went to clinics that turned out to be like nightmares. And then I've had friends that since I've gotten on TRT, they're like, oh, I don't understand why you need that. And we're so judgy. Are you finding that's still the case for a lot of people? Or are you finding that it's becoming way better?
So because I live in that world, the cadence at which people openly talk about it, and also the cadence at the number of clinics that are being opened also shows how much more people are seeking it out. The conversation can go multiple ways. So it does still have that stigmatism attached to it that it's cheating, it's unnecessary, it's going to kill you and do all these bad things. And I always say, well, why is that? Because when women go through menopause, no one blinks an eye. They just go on hormone replacement. Like that's what we all know happens. But when men go through the equivalent of menopause, which is called andropause, everyone freaks out. And like you said, with your friends are like, you don't need that and blah, blah, blah. Like, who are they to tell you that
Right.
you do or do not need something to function optimally as a man? And I think because it is an anabolic steroid hormone, it gets thrown into the same pile as anabolic steroids, where the difference is really in the dosage. But because it comes in a needle, then all of a sudden that's a bad taboo thing, at least since 1990, when the Steroid Act was what happened. And
Mhm.
a lot of men were dismissed and told that they don't need it, similar to yourself. However, a lot of what they experience is similar to what you did when you went to your doctor and then the endo. Is going through insurance is a nightmare because the range on labs for testosterone has decreased, like at least to probably three, because there's there's a lot of different lab companies like LabCorp, Quest, all these different ones. So LabCorp definitely decreased their range twice in the last decade or so. So the
Okay.
range for men used to start at 350 and go to like 9 or 1000, and now it starts 250. I mean, I've seen some lab companies, they start at like 189. Like it's just ludicrous. So it's harder for men to fall into an optimal range. And insurance companies require men to be what you were told, low enough, which
Yeah.
is sub 300 twice in a row when they go for a test, which is like obscene, right? So if you're like a
Mhm.
25-year-old, which we see a lot now, and you're 25 and your testosterone is 320, then you're going to be told, oh, yeah, you're fine, no problem. So it's deterring people away from going to general practitioners or anything through insurance, because it is going to be something that those doctors have to listen to what the insurance companies say. They're not necessarily trained in proactive longevity stuff or hormone optimization. They're trained in like everyday general things, like if you need a Z pack or if you need a physical or stuff like that. So I always tell people you don't want to rely on a GP to manage your health where there's nothing wrong. It's just
Mhm.
being proactive, and then also living optimally, because that big range of testosterone is an average of all the men in the United States: sick, overweight, underweight, inflamed, whatever. So now you're being thrown into the average pot of men in the US, and most men don't want to be considered average or normal. They want to be
Right.
optimal.
And even with that, I found that even if you get a doctor to prescribe you testosterone, which I eventually did after my prostatectomy and my prostate cancer, my testosterone crashed to under 200. And my urologist put me on TRT, but he really didn't understand or doesn't understand how to prescribe TRT.
Yeah.
Like he put me on 1 cc or 200 milligrams every 2 weeks.
Oh,
So I think that there's definitely an educational misinformation, or like doctors just aren't up to date on like current testosterone practices for the most part. And I did my own research, and after playing around back and forth with him, and like we finally got it dialed in, and I've been solid for a while. I'm on a very low dose, but multiple times a week. And so it's all dialed in, but it took some back and forth and some really like going around that, because he wasn't sure. I don't think he really knew how to properly prescribe testosterone.
yeah. And that's honestly really common too, because um, people will ask me, right? I'm not a physician, but I play one on TV. So, like,
Right.
I always make that joke, but like, I do kind of act as a liaison because there are so many TRT clinics now. I mean, I live in South Florida now. There's one every block. They all offer the same shit. These guys don't know who is better than who, and like, why would you go to one and not the other? Because there is like a very like McDonald's approach to everyone gets the same thing and then boom, we're off to the races. So you really do have to do your own research and be an advocate, or, ask me. I mean, with our clientele, what we do at Silverback Coaching is everything's in-house. So that way the medical and the fitness teams both talk to each other so they're on the same page, because it's very difficult to be a man who's trying to live a very healthy life, trying to stay lean, stay jacked, like just walk their kid, down the aisle when they're getting married, be able to show up for the family, continue building their business career, all that stuff. And you have to be able to do that at a high level, but you don't have to, no need to like manage. My doctor said this, and then my coach said this, and then it's all conflicting opinions. Or for us to deal with a provider who is giving one shot every 2 weeks and our client feels awful and they don't know why. And we have no say or anything in what their protocol is. Not that I do protocols, but working with a competent clinic allows for us to know that our clients are going to get the proper care so that we can do what we do and the medical team can do what they do and everybody's happy.
Right. And that brings up another question was, well, outside of working with your team, like how is someone to like know, okay, this is a good clinic or this is the McDonald's of clinics, as you mentioned?
So
are there signs that they can look for? Or?
Yeah, like, in Florida, like there's a advertisement in my gym for TRT for $99 a month. And I'm like, oh my God, like, you don't want to price shop it. Like, you don't want to look for the cheapest clinic out there.
Right.
I would say anybody who, after doing lab work, decides to put you on multiple things, then that's a red flag, because most guys just need testosterone. And if there's anything in addition, I would say, like, what are the main things guys usually need that are pharmaceuticals that have to have a prescription? Testosterone, thyroid, probably tadalafil, which is Cialis, which is great for endothelial function, not necessarily just for ED. But low dose tadalafil is also great for guys who maybe wake up to pee in the middle of the night, stuff like that. I mean, that's really it. So anyone that's trying to sell you up on like 24 peptides, an estrogen blocker, something to promote testicular hypertrophy, that's kind of like the client's decision. You don't need to be told. Like, HCG, does not have to accompany TRT. It's not the law. Like, you don't have to do that. And then anything that people say, oh, well, this keeps your testicles on and keeps natural production going, that's complete bullshit. No reason to do that. Just start with testosterone. That's really all.
Yeah, I've heard you mention that multiple times about like the estrogen blocker and the HCG. Is that what you?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was exactly when my my best friend went to a TRT clinic. That's exactly what they put him on.
It's the starter pack that we call it. 200 milligrams a test once a week, which is awful. HCG and Astrazole, and then whatever they can sell somebody up on. So that would be your red flag. If they prescribe 200 milligrams right off the bat, once a week, big red flag, plus all this other ancillary shit.
Yeah. And as I've heard you mention, like, I found for myself that like microdosing works a lot better with testosterone, right? Or
yes,
doing it multiple times a week.
Multiple times. So I would say, 2 times a week would be like the minimum amount. Most of our guys do 3 days a week. Some do every day. But the more often that you can inject, the more it aligns with your natural release pattern of your body, so that you will feel better more consistently versus shooting once a week or even less, which is crazy. That you have this big, I feel amazing, and then boom, like I feel like shit until your next shot.
Yeah. The next question I had was like, I know in listening to some of the things that you've talked about on other podcasts and on your channel and stuff, men are experiencing like testosterone issues as young as like their early 20s. And obviously I was in my late 40s when I finally like started noticing a lot of big changes. Like what should men really look for, and at what is there a certain age that they should really start getting checked, or is there just certain signs?
It's always good to get lab work done in your 20s just so you have a baseline of where you were. And that way you can continue to get them done. Like once or twice a year is the perfect cadence to get lab work done, because it's
Mhm.
kind of like you're checking in on yourself internally. Like, if you bench less than you did in your 20s, like, okay, maybe strength is decreasing, not necessarily correlating it with joint health and all that other stuff. But if your overall strength has decreased over time, is that because you haven't kept up with lifting weights? Are you less fit now? Have you not done any cardiovascular work? Like, there's all these ways we can measure that, but you can't measure your internal health unless you get that tested. So then you're just guessing. So starting with a baseline of labs is always great to get, because it's not just testosterone, it's everything. How is everything working? How am I doing as a man? How am I doing? How is my health? Do I have blood sugar under control? Am I inflamed? Do I need to see something to be a catalyst? Because a lot of guys, they don't do lab work because they don't want to see what's on the paper. Or, I mean, men don't go to the doctor at all anyway, unless it's
Right.
like a crisis. So now you don't even have to go to a doctor to get your blood work drawn. Like, you can do it from home with a mobile phlebotomist if you want. But usually men need to see something like on a piece of paper that says, like, if you don't do something about this right now, it's going to be a problem. So that's usually the catalyst to get guys to change their lifestyle and stuff. But it is a good thing to do at least once or twice a year.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I was impressed with, like listening to a lot of the stuff that you talk about and the information you put out there, is that you're not like, while you're kind of becoming known as like one of the TRT leading experts, it's not just about TRT, right? Like you talk about nutrition and exercise and all of that, and combine putting all the ingredients in the soup.
Yeah. Yeah. Because there are guys that will think, oh, testosterone will solve all my problems. And it can be described as a wonder drug sometimes, because it really does a lot of good things, but it's strictly to bring men to where they biologically should already be, which will help them sleep better, perform better, probably look better if they handle their nutrition and training and all that. And just live life with more conviction and confidence. But it's not something that you can take and then all of a sudden you just melt away body fat and then you become insulin sensitive versus resistant. And then this Greek god statue, like, it doesn't happen that way. So you
And
have to
even,
address that.
yeah, and even in my experience, like even if, and it's not a magic pill on the other end either, like even if you are on TRT and you like get to a nice body fat percentage, if you like go back on some of those habits, you can put the weight back on. It's not a magic. So
Oh, yeah. There's
like,
plenty of guys on TRT who are overweight, and
yeah.
you wouldn't stereotypically think like, oh, they're on testosterone.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, I mean, I got, after my you know, after all of my issues with my prostate cancer, I went through a little phase where I was like, oh well, I need to like refeed and I need to like heal and all that. And I just like put on a little bit of weight, and I'm just like, oh, okay. Now I'm just gonna bulk. And like all of a sudden I started noticing like, okay, I'm getting into some really bad habits. So it's
yeah,
time to refresh and like let's get back on track. But you can put the weight back on just as easily whether you're on TRT or not. It's
yeah, 100%. It is not magic.
yeah. A lot of our, with this podcast, a lot of our viewers and a lot of people who like really check out our content are gym owners and people who like want to own gyms, or like big fitness enthusiasts who like have some sort of aspiration about maybe owning a gym one day. Um, is there, in your opinion, obviously because you don't own a gym, is there some sort of a value that could come from a gym owner like having relationships with like clinics and places that are going to be legitimate for this sort of work?
Oh, absolutely. So the clinic I have a relationship with, which is Merrick Health, they basically have coaching partners. So you can offer this service, whether it's remote or brick and mortar. And not only does it elevate your client's results, but it's going to allow for more retention. So they're going to experience something they can't experience anywhere else, because now you're attacking all their results from every angle versus only handling a few different variables. So the fact that they can go all under one roof to get all their health things done 100%, because otherwise they're just going to go try and research it on their own. And then maybe the doctor will say, oh, don't do this exercise or don't do this, when they really have no place in saying that, because that is not their responsibility or their lane. So that, I can't say that enough. I mean, when I was training in person, I was building relationships with physicians starting in 2011, before you could even buy blood work online. So I would literally go to doctors, pay like the fee for whatever testing they offered, which, you know, when you're young, it's a lot of money. It was thousands of dollars, but that's what you have to do to get in the door to just have a conversation. You know, you can't really be like, hey, doctor, whoever, can I just like come hang out with you and like talk to you? Like, they don't have time for that. So that's a crucial part of being able to weed out who you do and don't want in your network. And you see how they operate and how they go through their process. And then if you don't like how your experience is, then you can write them off the list. But it's always good to have go-tos, because then it reflects very favorably on the gym owner. But it's you definitely have to make sure that they're aligned in the price points and that the experience is very similar to what you provide. Because if somebody goes to a physician's office and then the front desk person has a bad day or customer service is all hell, that's still going to reflect on you. So
yeah, that's one of the things you got to be careful with partnerships is,
yeah,
if you are partnering with someone and someone has a bad experience there, then it looks bad on you too. So
yep, 100%.
One of the other things I had seen you talk about was like you mentioned plastics and the microwave and that increasing estrogen levels. And I had never heard that before. And I thought that was really kind of crazy, because I see people all the time throwing plastic in the microwave and heating up their lunch. And I wonder, like, besides that, like, is that a major issue? And are there other things that could be increasing estrogen levels in men that they don't even know about?
So it's one of those things where it's like, you know, it can be viewed as this fear mongering thing that's kind of like earthy, crunchy, like, okay, that's a little bit crazy, Ali. I will say that if someone Googles EDCs, or endocrine disrupting chemicals, then there'll be a ton of things that come up as to which chemicals like basically convert to estrogen in the body. And they're everywhere. They're in like plastics, they're in like flame retardants, carpets, like we can't avoid it. So it's so overwhelming. Everyone's always like, well, how do I get them out of me or not even get exposed? Like, you really can't. Like, if you think about, you know, since we're brought into this world, then we get put on a plastic tube. Like, there's no avoiding that. The things that you can control that are seemingly an everyday impact would be not microwaving food in plastic, because plastic does have what are called xenoestrogens with an X, that in the plastic, when heat is present, it goes into the food. And that is very similar in water bottles that are plastic that are sitting in hot cars. Like, changing to glass and stainless steel to transport food and drink water out of is a pretty good idea. A lot of these things can be found in also skincare products, makeup, all that stuff. So some men don't need to worry about makeup, or most men, some, whatever you want to do. But I would say any body washes or beard oils or things like that that you may be using on a frequent basis, you don't want it to have any phthalates or parabens and stuff like that. And then, like, we're Gucci. Like, we don't have to attack absolutely everything, because it's way too hard. And it's a little ridiculous, the kind of lifestyle you'd have to live to avoid all of them. But if there's things that we're doing every single day that maybe they have like a minimal impact, but it's still an impact, then why not?
Mm-hmm.
Because we don't know exactly to what extent that could impact somebody.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And that was stuff I didn't even know about. So that was super informative when I saw it on one of the talks you were giving, or one of the pieces of information you were giving out. The other area I wanted to go to, and I know it's such a touchy area for so many men, but it's something that you're so comfortable talking about. So I wanted to get there. Is like, even when you signed up, like when you filled out the Calendly, it said the boner queen. So I know that's something you're super comfortable talking about. And I've seen you talk about like nutrition and other things that affect sex drive besides just testosterone level. So could you talk about that a little bit? Or
Yeah, like most guys, when they think of testosterone, they think boner, muscles. That's it. And that's not the only thing that testosterone helps with. So we've actually had guys that have been really any age, it could be like mid 30s, who suffer from low sex drive. And maybe they couldn't maintain an erection, but they can get one, but it's not always the same because they're eating like the man level of dieting at 1800 calories. And then they've been doing that forever and ever. And so we've had guys who have come to us with those symptoms, eating that level of calories. And then we raise their calories. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, okay, I'm back. Like they thought something was really, really wrong when they were just depriving their body of nutrients. Because if you're eating super low calories and you're doing a ton of activity, your body's not going to be like, yeah, we're going to procreate. Let's prioritize that. Like, no, it's kind of just, let's keep you alive. And that's the level that your body's operating at. So, you can say to yourself, maybe it's time to track my food, see where my calories at. Maybe I'm not eating enough, or maybe I need more carbs to promote energy. So that's one way to kind of do some intel to see where you stand. But a lot of guys don't realize the impact of stress and trauma and all that stuff. And like trauma is like a trending word right now. Everyone's talking about their childhood trauma, but there is an impact of PTSD. If you have a traumatic experience, whether you're a kid, you're a teenager or whatever, that can bleed into your adult life and cause subconscious things that can cause erectile dysfunction. So if it's complete like impotence, like you can't get erection at all, then I would consult like a true specialist who does deal with that, which many of the TRT clinics actually do, because there's different therapies for it. There's shockwave therapies, there's shots, there's a lot of different ways to stimulate blood flow in that area. And it could be various different reasons. But guys who maybe are not horny 24/7 think that that's ED, and that's not true. No one's supposed to be walking around like they were when they were 13. It's just, that's not how it happens. And usually if they go on TRT, they think that that will like reclaim their early teenhood. And I'm like, no, that's not the way it works. So don't think that testosterone is going to solve all the boner problems, because it is multifaceted. There's a bazillion different reasons. Like if you're out of shape, if you have poor cardiovascular health, if you're completely stressed out, if you overeat, if you undereat, all these things can go into it. So just don't think, oh, it's testosterone.
it's so interesting you brought up rest right there, because that was actually my next question, because it really hit home when I heard you talking about when you're working with vets and how challenging it is to actually get them to dial it back. Because I know for me, like a rest day just seems like the worst thing ever. Like, so like even on a rest day, I'm just so antsy because I didn't go to the gym and I didn't get that work in right at the first thing in the morning. And then I just feel antsy for the rest of the day, which I know is then creating stress. And I'm just like, well, if I just would have went to the gym, I would have gotten this out of my system. And like, but I know rest is important. Can you talk about that a little bit? Or
yeah, just go for a walk. That's what I tell guys. And then they'll be like, yeah, I went for, 18-mile ruck with my backpack on my rest day. I'm like, that's not a rest day. Like that, the veterans, I love them to death. They're special. A lot of guys do struggle with like rest day. And here's the thing. I used to as well. I totally get it because I felt okay if I'm not doing anything. And it's not like, hey, go lay on the couch and watch Netflix for like 9 hours. It's get movement in, like it's not completely stationary. Definitely go for a walk, be active, but it's not impaling yourself in the gym. So right now I train like three to 4 days. I'm training for a pole dancing competition. So I effectively have like 3 to 4 days of upper body work. And then I'm training lower body like 2 to 3 days a week. So collectively, it's 4 days of strength training. Sometimes it's three. And I used to think that that wasn't enough. And I cannot wait for rest days. I'm like, I love rest days now because I've realized that even if I rest 2 days in a row, not only do I feel fresher, nothing hurts when I go into the next training session, I don't lose any muscle. I don't turn into a fat blob. Like nothing bad happens. And last year, the last 2 years were the most heavy travel days of my entire career. And there were some weeks where I didn't train for like 2 to 3 weeks. And past Ali would have had like a conniption. And I was like, yo, this is awesome that I cannot do jack shit but walk for 3 weeks and I look the same. Like that was wild. Like I was like, this is awesome. Oh, rest actually it does help. So if you're constantly beating your body up and it can't recover, then you're basically not allowing it to grow muscle. You're not allowing it to like get ready for the next training session. So you're just constantly like breaking. And that doesn't get you anywhere. And that happens a lot, like with people who are in the gym that you see, like every gym has it. The people who have been there that they look the same because they're doing the same stuff. Whereas if you train like 3 days, really super intense, like it is hard. And by intense, it's not CrossFit, it's not like HIIT training. Like you literally have sets where you're like, I could not have executed those reps any harder. I left nothing on the table. You should be okay taking days off. It's the people that are like, I train 7 days a week and I feel like I could do 2 a days. I question their work ethic in that training session. Like, how hard are you training that you can go to the gym like 8 times? Come on.
Yeah, because you hear a lot of like Dr. Mike talks a lot about like systemic fatigue versus like muscle fatigue, and you've got to let the whole thing rest. I know. And I know as like being 52 now, I know that like rest is important, even more important, just because you got to avoid injury, and rest helps you avoid injury.
And that's the thing I don't think people realize too. Like I did that to myself last week. So when someone overtrains, we call it overreaching. And that's where you hit a point of like no return where you just feel wrecked. No amount of stimulants in the world can bring you back to life. Everything hurts. You just want to lay down. So last week I was really dumb. I had my 3 days of lifting and then I did 4 days of pole. And pole dancing is something that I never thought I would ever do, but you're literally doing pull-ups for like an hour and then it's jujitsu with an inanimate object. And it's really difficult. So I did that. And one day I trained and I did pole, like it was a disaster. Come Sunday, I was like, I feel awful. And I woke up at 2:30 in the morning. I was starving. I was sweating. My heart rate was high. Like those are all signs of stress and your body's just like, yo, chill. So I was like, yo, I'm taking Monday off. I'm not training. I'm going to eat 2 donuts. Like I didn't eat enough because when you increase your activity, you got to bring calories up too. So now I'm back, but there are people that just keep pushing through because they're like, well, I can't take a day off. I've got to push through. I got to do all my workouts. But if your body is like waving the white flag, why are we pushing? Because literally every Sunday morning, we've got open pole practice for our competition. And I tapped out halfway through because I was like, if I do anything else, I'm going to get hurt. And that's probably maturity because younger Ali would be like, come on, you fucking pussy. Like, let's push through, you know? But now I'm like, no, we don't need to get hurt. We don't need to do crappy reps because crappy reps tell your body that it's okay to have sloppy form, and then it sticks. So just take a rest day.
Yeah. And like having gotten hurt a few times because I didn't want to, like, I kept wanting to push, like, it's important. And that mental part of it too is just, I tore my bicep tendon and it's been a year and a half to mentally be able to like push my bicep again. So you don't want to get there.
No.
So
And when people are like, well, I have to go. Why? What do you feel you're missing out on? If it's an outlet for stress, find another activity, because it's not an outlet for stress if it's actually creating stress. Even though it may feel like we are less stressed when we're there, you don't have to do the same workout. You can go and you can do some mobility work and then a little bit of cardio, like upper zone 1, zone 2 cardio is actually great for recovery. You just don't have to annihilate yourself. But there are other ways to relieve stress, but like a hard training session that actually adds more stress on your system. And that is a controllable variable that you have complete control over, because you don't have to do anything if you don't want, but you could do some light activity. But light seems to be a different definition to everybody.
yeah, and I actually found that carb cycling actually helped me. I started carb cycling and it helped me a lot. I don't know how you feel about that, but it helped me a lot with rest days because they were programmed in, and that was my no carb day. And there was no way I was going to the gym on my no carb day and getting up at 4:30 in the morning to go to the gym before work on a no carb day. So they were scheduled in, and it just really helped me mentally get that like off day in there.
Yeah. So then I would tie that to, okay, if there's carbs on the rest day, then the impetus for going to the gym is because you're eating carbs. So then I would want to explore that a little bit further, because why do we think that? Because we can use carbs to recover as well.
Right.
So I'm not opposed to carb cycling. I would definitely say that when we've used it with clients, it's in clients who are extremely consistent. Because if somebody is consistent with their food initially, then it makes sense to do carb cycling. Whereas if they're all over the place eating all different amounts, then like it's already natural carb cycling. So
yeah, it's super challenging.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
I do carb cycling. Like my coach has had me basically do effective like carb cycling for the last 3 years, because the way my macros are set up is my protein and my fat are just stationary markers. And then based on my activity level that day is what my calories come out to in carbs. So if my activity is extremely high, usually carbs are a lot higher. And you can work that in the chronometer app that we use. You can work that so where you're still in a deficit when you program the food in, even though you are eating more effectively. So that's like a whole nother conversation for another day.
Yeah. Oh, the other thing I wanted to talk to you about, I heard in one of your videos, you talked about like going to the gym, and that the gym you go to is this dirty gym, and you love it there. I looked up the gym, and that on my side of the industry, that's what we call gritty. Um, but could you talk a little bit more about like what is it that you find, like what's really a great gym?
I do love my gym, and it's clean. I shouldn't say it's dirty, but like, it compared to the bougie gyms, it's dirty. But basically, first of all, any gym that has a rule that you can't bring a bag on the floor, I'm out. Like, that's just ridiculous. Or chalk or anything actually used in people that lift hard.
Mhm.
But also that has a culture that is like a respect. So like in my gym, people people can ask to work in, but it's very clear if somebody is using something, and people don't just like blindly take shit from you and get in your way and all of this stuff. Like they respect the fact that you have headphones on. They don't come to talk to you. They're not walking around oblivious to anybody but themselves, like all that stuff. And then a lot of the equipment like is old. So like the older Paramount stuff, the older hammer strength, like when you have that, like I'm like, oh yeah, because like that stuff was way harder than what they have in the modern world now, I guess, equipment wise.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But there's also like there's a lot of Arsenal stuff. There's like a lot of new companies that are actually really good, and Panada and stuff. So they have a whole mix of stuff versus a gym that has like only Life Fitness or only Pre-Core or whatever. Then I don't enjoy that so much personally.
Oh
so.
no, me either. I love the old school, hardcore, like gritty gyms, and it's just character.
Yeah.
And I heard you mention the pendulum squat, and then you mentioned Paramount. So I'm assuming they have the pendulum.
They do. It's terrible. It's awful.
That is my favorite pendulum squat. Like,
yeah.
I was at a gym last week that I was re-reviewing it, and they had the Paramount pendulum squat. That thing is a killer.
Dude, that Jay Ferrugia is the same way. Like that's his favorite as well. I mean, I could put a 10-pound plate on there and die. Like the hard.
Yeah. I mean, if it didn't have the counterweight.
Oh my God. It's yeah. It's right in front of the deadlift platform. So I'm constantly staring at it. I'm just like waiting, maybe my coach will program that in someday soon. Cause we've had it a few phases ago, but yeah.
Yeah, it's super challenging. The other area I wanted to go to, it's a little bit different than, and I've heard you talk about it, and it was something that I've been talking a lot about. Like I started a men's group. I know you grew up in a Catholic church or in a Catholic school, so I don't know if you're actually Catholic or not, but I'm Catholic, and I know you went to Catholic school, right?
I did, but I'm not Catholic.
Okay, no problem. That was not where I was going, but I started a men's group at our Catholic church, and one of the things we talked about was how challenging it is for men to have friends. And I've heard you talk about that a lot.
Oh yeah. And it's not because of religion. Like this isn't a religious discussion.
Oh no, not at all.
And my mom actually never even told me until I was out of college. Like, I think we were Episcopalian or something. And I was like, huh? But like we had Jewish people at our school, so it wasn't like selective. But anyway, men, especially like entrepreneurs. So, myself included, like we're very isolated. We're usually operating in a way that is different from the corporate world. Like most people, I always joke, I have no idea if it's a holiday. And then if I see like the kids in our neighborhood running around on a weekday, I'm like, did I miss something? Is it like an Easter or something? Like, oh, I had no idea Easter was like 2 weeks ago until like Good Friday. I was like, oh, Easter's this weekend. We don't have kids, so that's part of it. Right. But like I'm so used to working all the time that you're not like the rest of the world where it's like 3-day weekend. There's a time to clock in and clock out. So people don't have the same struggles. They don't operate the same way. They don't understand that there's times that you may have to work when you're on vacation or whatever. So that also breeds jealousy, insecurity, and people just detach because they don't understand that lifestyle. And then when you do meet other entrepreneurs, it's like immediate love attachment. Like you speak my love language. Like all my good friends, none of them live in Florida. Barely none of them lived in Connecticut. Like it's all people from everywhere that I've met through events, through masterminds, through all that stuff, because they get me and they get how I operate. And a lot of guys, if they're the sole person of their friend group who is trying to get in shape and not drink and all this stuff, they get such shit from some guys sometimes where they're like, come on, dude, you can drink, like you're fine, or they get made fun of. And they often find they have to really change friend circles. And that's happened to a few of our clients because they were no longer the guy who was down for going out 3 nights a week to go drink. he wanted to go to bed to get up early to train. And that was not something his friends really liked. And sometimes people worry about it and they're like, well, my friends won't understand. They're going to make fun of me. And then I'm like, well, are they really your friends then? If they can't support the fact that you're trying to get healthier?
Yeah, it's super challenging because I mean, I know I get, and it's hard not to get jealous. Like,
Yeah.
as you know, you see these like group of guys that they're always hanging out and they're going out and they're doing this, and you're like, okay, I got to go to the gym in the morning, and as a, as someone building a fitness business, like I got to edit these videos and I got to go to this gym and get this video tour done. It's super challenging. Like most of the guys I talk to and relate to and are gym owners now. Like I talk to gym owners all over the country and we've become friends, but they're all over the country. So, and they'll call me up but it's challenging because they're all over the country.
Yep. Yep.
So, is there anything else that you wanted to? I didn't have any more questions. I appreciate you coming on. Super excited. Is there anything you'd like to tell everyone about what you guys do at Silverback or the Silverback Summit or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, kind of piggybacking on the making friends thing. I realized 4 years ago there were no events that catered strictly to men's health. All the medical conferences are mostly focused on women's health and research in women's health. And I was like, where's the dudes? So I created my own event, Silverback Summit, but it's not just focused on the medical piece. Like it's all my trusted practitioners, TRT doctors, fitness professionals, nutrition, as well as business, but it brings everybody together. And the overwhelming theme every single year is how cool of a group it is and how much like people make friends each year. And it's the coolest thing for me to see because I'm like, they booked a trip together. Like they went snowboarding. What? Like they met at Silverback. Like it's really, really cool. So if you don't have a place like that or a room where you can just walk in and be like, all right, I feel understood. I feel accepted. That would be the place. And this year we're doing it November 13th through 15th in Orlando. So they can find all the info for that on my Instagram. It's all up there.
All right, awesome. Thank you for coming on, Ali. I greatly appreciate it. And thank you.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more great content.